What is the purpose of CNN? I ask this every now and then. What is the purpose of CNN? They bring back this slob, this left-wing moronic slob from Watergate, Carl Bernstein, because they want you to be thinking about Watergate in the era of Trump. Problem is, it isn't Watergate. It's not the era of Nixon, it's the era of Trump. And they want to take Trump down much as they took down Nixon. Just remember, whataboutism is relevant. What about Kennedy and all the scandals? Never touched him. LBJ and his disgusting scandals? Never touched him. Never. But they target certain politicians. They target certain presidents. And they tend to be Republicans. One of our greatest presidents ever, Ronald Reagan, they tried to take him out during the Iran-Contra matter. They wanted to impeach him. They wanted him to be indicted. They thought they could. But they couldn't because he didn't do anything wrong. They're doing exactly the same thing, trying to do exactly the same thing with President Trump. Now, the lawyers for the President of the United States are preparing a counter report. I read this in the Daily Beast about an hour ago. Giuliani, Sekulow, and so forth, a report to deal with Mueller. The first half of the report is to question his legitimacy, which, of course, is relevant. And apparently, I haven't seen it. I haven't discussed it with anybody. And the second, I'm just basing it on the article, the second part of the report is to go blow for blow for blow on what they anticipate Mueller might say. And in the article, they say this is unprecedented, that this egghead professor with scrambled eggs, he was saying, well, you know, who provides a report in response to a prosecutor's report? I would say to the professor, how many prosecutors prepare a report? Prosecutors don't prepare reports. They either indict people or they don't. And that is the problem with prosecutors preparing reports. Because then it's used by diabolical people, among others, for the purpose of, in this case, trying to impeach a president of the United States. So there's serious questions about Mr. Mueller's appointment, and there's serious questions, not only the way he was appointed, but constitutional questions. And they ought to be raised. And there's serious questions about what Mr. Mueller's doing in terms of his criminal investigation. But again, we were talking about the media, right, and why some people get more attention in their passing than other people. Is it always because they're greater or better, or are there other reasons? The reason why Mr. Mueller is being held on a pedestal is because they want him to take out the President of the United States. So they protect him. The Praetorian Guard media protect him. They know he hired a bunch of partisan Democrats on his staff, which is really quite outrageous, and he thumbed his nose at the American people. They have no problem with that. They know his number two guy is unethical, and it's been demonstrated to be unethical, Weissman. They have no problem with that. It's okay. They know he has clearly turned a blind eye to all the criminality that took place at the FBI, at the Justice Department, and our intelligence agencies, and with the Hillary Clinton and DNC, and all of. But he turns a blind eye to it. They know all this. But it doesn't matter. So they're going to hold him up. They're going to hold him up, hold him in high esteem, continue to build him up, build him up, build him up, while they tear down Trump, tear down Trump, tear down Trump. Because they get to decide who the angels are in their minds and who the devils are. Right? So, Mueller's an angel, Trump's a devil. If you're a conservative in politics, or if you're not a conservative in politics, let's say you're in what I do, talk radio or TV and that sort of thing, and you throw enough bombs at Trump, and you make enough disparaging comments about Trump. I mean, you can have honest disagreements with Trump and raise certain questions. Well, maybe he shouldn't have done this. Maybe I've done it myself. But if that is your basic menu every day, to say, well, 6 of one, half a dozen of the other, when you know the Republic's under attack, when you know the 2016 election results are under attack, when you know the Constitution is being undermined, when you know that Mr. Mueller is a partisan based on what he's been doing, then you've really joined forces with those who are not calling it straight, because they want to be tapped on the head too and given a that-a-boy. At least that's a conservative who weighs things. That's a conservative who has an open mind. That's a conservative who's objective. And I'm not buying that for 1 second. I've told you these stories before. How many times I've been invited on these mainstream media outlets when I've criticized the president, say about the whatever is trade or this, that, or whatever. Mark, would you like to come on? They're not going to invite me to come on to defend the president. They're not going to, even more, they're not going to invite me to come on to defend the Constitution, to criticize the press, to criticize their claims of defending freedom of the press. They would never invite me to discuss that. Take a look at a couple of these people on MSNBC briefly. A guy by the name of Steve Schmidt. This guy was a top campaign worker for John McCain in 2008 for his presidential run. He has been a Republican operative for decades. That's how he's made his money. He is on MSNBC constantly making the most hateful, poisonous comments about Trump. One of the new hosts on MSNBC is somebody by the name of Nicole Wallace. Nicole Wallace worked on that same campaign, 2008 McCain. Was supposed to assist Sarah Palin. When the election's over, just trashed her. Just trashed her. And these people now, they're embraced in these various social circles in Manhattan and Washington, D.C. and L.A. You know, they're not dirty. They're not deplorable. These are really the good kind of Republicans. As a matter of fact, I think Schmidt or maybe the other one, Wallace, or maybe both of them say, I'm not a Republican anymore. You can see the same thing with Scarborough. It's one thing not to be a Republican anymore based on principles, but these aren't based on principles. What principles? The Republican Party is supposed to represent, frankly, our founding principles. That's why it is in existence. And when it moves off that, people leave the Republican Party to criticize it. Fine. But if you're really a leftist or a Democrat or both, and you criticize the Republican Party, that's opportunism. These are opportunists. In other words, the Republican Party was never going to be the Democrat Party. At least it wasn't supposed to be. The Republican Party was never going to be a liberal party. At least it wasn't supposed to be. But the Republican Party was supposed to be and is supposed to be the place you go for our founding principles, right? And so the Mueller is held up as this angelic figure, and everybody who works for him, not scrutinized, not questioned, nothing of the sort. They have all these investigative reporters and so, not a thing. But every time the President of the United States tweets, they analyze every syllable. Or Ron DeSantis in Florida, you can't use the word successful or articulate or the phrase monkey up or anything. You must be a racist. You hit all the bucket items, all the bucket items. I'll be right back. Jim, Edison, New Jersey, the great WABC retired FBI agent. Thank you for your service. How are you, sir?
Oh, thank you, Mr. Levin. Thank you, sir. Sir, I just wanted to say that I believe Jeff Sessions is a little out of his league. I think Mr. Trump, President Trump, appointed him out of friendship and what he did for him. And you know, I understand that, but I don't know why he came up with this Christopher Wray when he could have had an opportunity to appoint a guy by the name of Jim Kallstrom. Jim Kallstrom was
he's terrific.
My boss in the FBI in New York, and I never actually met Jim Kallstrom, but he was the top FBI agent in New York, and he was, I mean, if he would have got...
Well, listen, I'm quite familiar with him, as is my audience, and I have met him, and he is a superstar. And he would have been a great director of the FBI, no question about it.
for 10 years as an agent, and I actually never met the man, but I didn't have to. I mean, he was our boss, and he was terrific. If he would have got appointed right away, if they would have fired Comey on the day one, put Jim Kallstrom in, he would have cleaned up that office. He would have got rid of McCabe and Strupp and Lisa Page. He would have got rid of them on day one. That's the kind of guy he was. And people don't seem to understand. Comey was not an FBI agent. Comey was appointed by Barack Obama, and he never ran down the yellow brick road. He never sat out on surveillances for 12 hours all night long. He was just a person that was appointed. I guess Mueller pushed for him, but he should have never been director. It should have been Jim Kallstrom right away. And, all I could say is, I mean, I never met Kallstrom myself, even though I saw him once in the office, walk by our squad, but I actually never shook hands with him, never met the man. But I'll tell you something, he is terrific. And I think in November, President Trump should just appoint him.
All right, my friend. I appreciate your service.